Over the past 2 years, many of us have been trying to figure out what is actually going on in Elden Ring. The Lands Between holds a rich and mysterious history crafted by the legendary fantasy and science fiction author George R. R. Martin. His mythos twisted and sculpted by one of the greatest video game directors of all time, Hidetaka Miyazaki. There are countless hours of videos and pages of text of people coming together just trying to understand this fictional world. For us to understand the story of Elden Ring, I think we have to understand who the most important character is. The character who drives the plot forward. The character who the story is truly about. But before we can do that, let us recap what happens in Elden Ring. After choosing a new game, you create your own character. You choose their name, face, background, and starting class. We are then shown a slideshow presentation explaining the current state of the world. That the Elden Ring was shattered, Marika the Eternal is missing, the death of Godwyn the Golden, and how the rest of the demigods went to war in an event known as the Shattering. We then learn about the return of the Tarnished, and see many of the characters we will meet on our journey. Lastly, our character is shown receiving grace, and we are given our goal: stand before the Elden Ring, become Elden Lord. We wake up in a locked church with a dead finger maiden. On her lap is a tarnished wizened finger made of corpse wax. It is a relic of those who came before, left to help those who would come after. We step out into the world and see the majesty of the Erd Tree and Stormvale. We are then ambushed by a grafted scion under the watchful eye of a statue of Queen Marika the Eternal. Either we die here in this fight, or press on just to fall into the water chasing butterflies. We then wash up in a stranded gravesite, sure to die. But Torrent, the spectral steed, leads Melina to us, and she leaves us with a flask of crimson and cerulean tears, a gift of rejuvenation, to seek the Elden Ring. From here, we go out into the wide world and meet a masked man who tells us how maidenless we are, that we must follow the guidance of grace, slay the demigod Godric the Grafted, and get an invitation to the Round Table Hold. Afterwards, you can do whatever you please and go in any direction you want. After resting at 3 sites of grace, we meet Melina, the woman brought to us by Torrent, and who left us the flask of tears. Since we are maidenless, she offers to play the role of maiden. We can rest our hand on hers, look her in the eye, and share with her. Share our thoughts, our ambitions, the principles we would follow, and then she will turn our runes into strength. She will make us stronger, faster, better. She will make us fit to be Lord. All we have to do is take her to the foot of the Erd Tree, and if we accept, she joins us for our journey, wherever it might take us. All we have to do is take her to the foot of the Erd Tree. She also gifts us with a delicate gold work ring, whose sweet sound can summon the spectral steed, Torrent. The spectral steed who chose us. With this, exploration and travel becomes easy. We can go almost anywhere and do anything. Along this journey, Melina appears, but only seldomly. When she does, she shares with us. She shares the history of the world. She tells us of the lands between and those within it. And she tells us the echoes of Marika, the eternal queen now missing. She tells us she is searching for her purpose, given to her by her mother inside the Erd Tree, long ago. The reason that she lives, burned and bodiless. After traveling far and wide, felling great monsters and demigods, collecting runes and tears and turning them into strength, she tells us the truth, that she is no maiden, and only played the role, that she was testing us, to see whether or not grace truly does guide us. Torrent had our measure from the very start, where she merely pretended, and off she takes us to the Round Table Hold. We meet many more characters, and fight many more monsters. Some of us fought different monsters, and some of us met different characters. But one thing is the same between all of our playthroughs. We bring Melina to the foot of the Erd Tree. And when we do, she departs, for here she can govern her own movements. But when we are prevented from entering the Erd Tree by a mantle of barbs, Melina returns. She tells us that the only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become Elden Lord is to pass the thorns, and her purpose serves to aid in that very act. We must bring her to the flame of ruin, for she will be the kindling that will light the flame of ruin and burn down the Erd tree. Her purpose was given to her by her mother, but she acts of her own volition. She has set her heart upon the world that she would have. When resting at the forge, before she becomes kindling, she tells us that she has long observed the lands between, that the world is in dire need of repair, and death indiscriminate. And here we are left with a choice. We can choose to sacrifice Melina, or we can sear our own flesh with the flame of frenzy, and become the Lord of Frenzy Flame. If we do, Melina will beg and she will plead. However ruined this world has become, however mired in torment and despair, life endures, births continue. She asks,
"There is beauty in that, is there not?"
But why? Why does Melina care? How did she come to these conclusions? And what are her motivations? To get that answer, let us look at what we know of Melina. She wears light yet sturdy clothes which are worn by young women who set off into the world to confront their fate. She has one eye of Grace's gold, and the other is sealed with what looks like the claws of a death bird. She carries a blade of calling, a dagger given to one who set out on a journey to fulfill her duty long ago. The power of its former owner, the Kindling Maiden, is still apparent. When we summon her for our fight with Morgott, she uses this dagger and can shoot blades like golden flames. She can also summon an ethereal golden tree that heals all that bathes in its rays. Her movement is also the exact same as the Black Knife Assassins. The Black Knife Assassins were all women, and rumored to be Newman who had close ties to Marika herself. Their black knives also look incredibly similar to the Blade of Calling, and share the same animation when casting either the Blade of Gold or the Blade of Death. The Newmen are said to have come from outside the Lands Between, denizens of another world, long-lived but seldom born. From this, we can deduce that Melina is a Newman. She tells us that she has long observed the world, and that she wishes to set it right. She can take rune fragments and reshape them within us. She gifted us a flask of tears to give us life. She can also tell us the echoes of Marika. In certain locations throughout the world, almost like reciting a memory, she can tell us the words spoken by the missing Eternal Queen. So who is Melina? The sacred flask she gives us is modeled after a golden holy chalice that was once graced by a tear of life. During the age of the Erd Tree, these tears were used to spread the faith, for theirs was once a certain blessing. It is said that when the age of the Erd Tree began, such blessings were personally bestowed upon the recipients by Queen Marika herself. So where do these tears come from? Painted on the icon shield is the divine scene, the recipients of a blessed tear from the Erd Tree, a person crouched low, and a single golden tear dripping from its boughs. But whose tears are these? For trees cannot cry. The one washed up on the gravesite was sure to die, until this flask offered its gift of rejuvenation. These tears are Marika's, for which she personally bestowed onto the Tarnished, to seek the Elden Ring. Days and years are alike to one who lives the life eternal, and Marika has long observed the Lands Between, and came to the conclusion that this world is in dire need of repair. Throughout the world, we find statues of Marika, hands raised up high, her feet too sacred to touch the ground we all walk. But when we enter the Erd Tree, we see it true. Crucified and impaled, a punishment for her crime, a punishment for the guilty. We find these statues everywhere in the Lands Between. We can find them through Limgrave and all the way up in the mountaintops of the Giants. These are statues that were created long before Marika shattered the Elden Ring. There is even one before the Flame of Ruin, at the Church of Repose. Repose is defined as a state of rest, sleep, or tranquility, and is only used twice in all of Elden Ring. The other is found in the Weeping Peninsula, named for its unceasing rainfall, redolent of lament. Found in the demi-human forest ruins is the Shield of the Guilty. It was made to venerate a maiden whose eyes were crushed by the briars of sin before being reborn in these lands. Venerating the repose of the soul, this shield boosts focus. What could Marika have done to warrant such punishment? perhaps conspiring to burn the Erd Tree, by crafting a scheme where one deathless Tarnished would one day wield a god-slaying sword, reinforced with the time-twisting scales of the Dragon Lord Placidusax, to slay the Elden Beast and remake the world. The Numen are said to have come from outside the Lands Between, and are in fact the same stock as Queen Marika herself, their runes sharing the same red tint as primordial gold and the Crucible. But when the black and red Rune of Death was removed from the Elden Ring, the Golden Order was created, and so too was the Grace of Gold. Now, it seems, Numen were no longer the only ones who were long-lived. This point in Marika's life is unknown to us, for now, soon to be revealed under the shadow of the Erd Tree. But we can look to parallels in our story to find the truth. Marika is an Empyrean, the vessel for the Elden Ring, the vision for order. And the Empyrean we interact with the most is none other than Ranni the Witch. She was born a princess to the royal Carian line, daughter of Queen Rennala of the Full Moon. The Carians can trace their ancestry almost as far back as the Numens can. Found in Caria Manor is Urumi, a weapon made of extremely thin, flexible blades of metal that was wielded like a whip by Nightfolk warriors. The Nightfolk are few in number, and they were said to have bled silver long ago. And much like the silver they used to bleed, their weapons can extend and change much like the silver tier weapons of the Nox. The traditions of the Nox passed down through generations, from their marital practices to their worship of the moon. Where the Nox once revered the lost black moon of Noxtella, which was once the guide to countless stars, the Carians were followers of the dark moon, hidden in mimicry under the guise of the full moon. And Ranni, the lunar princess and daughter to Rennala, would follow in these traditions. Led by the hand of her mother, Ranni would behold a moon that was cold, dark, and veiled in occult mystery. Ranni's personal and secret mentor was a snowy crone, who she encountered deep in the woods. She was a witch, and well-versed in cold sorceries. The snowy crone taught Ranni to fear the dark moon, as she imparted her cold sorceries. One day, her mother Rennala would pass down a treasure chest to the Carian princess, so that she may honor long-standing tradition, with the gift of a dark moon ring, the symbol of a cold oath. For when Ranni would be queen, she would need a consort to weave her night into being. But Ranni would have to abandon her purpose given to her by her mother, for she was an Empyrean, chosen by her own two fingers, as a candidate to succeed the current Eternal Queen. She was gifted Blaidd, the half-wolf, in the form of a vassal tailored for an Empyrean, as her shadow. But Ranni would not acquiesce to the two fingers. She would not be controlled by that thing, a slave to order. Her tears turned to power. She turned her back on the two fingers and followed the dark path of the Empyrean. But in resisting becoming an instrument to the two fingers, her shadow went mad, transforming from a faithful follower into a horrid curse. Blaidd's own thoughts would hold no weight, try as he might, half shadow and half man. Malekith, Marika's black blade, was once the same, and he too would be forced to face his queen. The glom-eyed queen led the apostles. As an Empyrean chosen by the fingers, she would not acquiesce. The apostles were all embraced by the glom-eyed queen, and the black flame was their armor within. She would cradle the newborn apostles, swaddling them in a cloth sewn together from supple skin, so that they would grow to become the death of the gods. With the Godslayer's greatsword in hand, the black flame channeled through this sword, the glom-eyed queen would face down her once faithful shadow. But after her defeat at the hands of Malekith, the source of her power, destined death, was sealed away. Queen Marika's sole need of her shadow was a vessel to lock away destined death. Even then, she betrayed her shadow-bound beast. But now all of the pieces were set. Marika's plan to slay a god were in motion. There was one more piece in play for everything to come together. Her champion, who would become Lord. After the war against the ancient dragons, Godwyn the Golden befriended the ancient dragon Fortisax and became inundated in the cult of the ancient dragon, his faith in the Erd Tree possibly wavering. Godfrey was different, and his warpath would continue through Limgrave, through Caelid, all the way to the ancient city of Farum Azula, his Crucible Knights and malformed draconic tree sentinels in tow, with the Lord of the Battlefield away on campaign, and ancient dragons in the form of priestesses whispering in Godwyn's ear. Who would be left to face the self-proclaimed Queen of Caria and newly elected headmaster of the Academy? Lord Radagon was a great champion, possessed of flowing red locks. He came to the lands of Liurnia at the head of a great golden host when he met Lady Rennala in battle. 2 wars would be fought, but there would be no victory for the Golden, nor for the Moon. No prize but atonement, the birth of a vow. Radagon would repent his territorial aggressions and take part in the miracle of the Church of Vows, with the Academy of Raya Lucaria and the golden Erd Tree of the capital in view. Radagon would kneel in a basin beneath the statue of a Nox Swordstress, and would wash himself with the hidden night tear from the Eternal City. In sacred baptism, the celestial dew would reverse all antagonizations, a recollection of the time when the stars of the night sky guided fate. And like it had in the times of old, Night and Flame would be married again. He would profess his love for Rennala, and when they wed, he would place her mother's dark moon ring onto her finger, symbolic of the cold oath to his wife and to her dark moon. A moon greatsword was bestowed by the Carian queen upon her spouse to honor long-standing tradition. As king consort to the full moon queen, he would have statues erected, but Radagon was said to have despised his own red locks, and so his statues would all be hooded, with a flaming torch to light the way, an iron greatsword to stay the path, and a book to search for the truth. He brought golden tailoring tools with him when he married into the Carian line. With these, the attire of their children could be crafted and mended by Radagon. One of those tools was a gold sewing needle, and with that needle, a gold lattice would be stitched into the masks of the Carian magic preceptors. These masks of confidence would make it clear that all of their matters were to be kept strictly private, and the hoods that covered their heads would be connected together with the brooch in the shape of a serpent. Children they did have, 3 in fact. One would grow large and imposing, a proud son of Radagon, and the eventual scourge of the stars. One shrewd and serpentine, a proud son of Radagon, and the eventual lord of blasphemy. One would be the prize of Caria, the next queen of the moon, Lunar Princess Rani. But one fateful night, the rune of death was stolen, and the demigods began to fall, starting with Godwyn the Golden. The lands between would be shook to its core, and the world would change. The heir to the golden lineage slain, the Elden Lord banished, and the queen of the full moon was broken, her only daughter gone without a trace. Radagon would not be able to be with his grieving wife. He would have to leave for the capital and become the second Elden Lord. But he left her with a gift, an amber egg to bring back her daughter, and a barrier of gold to ward away the transgressions of the cuckoos. As the husband of Rennala of Caria, the red-haired Radagon studied sorcery, and as the husband of Queen Marika, he studied incantations. Thus did the hero aspire to be complete. Deathroot spread across the land, and Erd Tree burial began to decline. The age of plenty was coming swiftly to a close. At the sight of a budding minor Erd Tree, Radagon declared his intent to search the depths of the Golden Order. Through understanding of the proper way, his faith, his grace, would increase. Those blissful early days of belief were long past. He asked his comrades, "Why must ye falter?" But beneath that minor Erd Tree was the truth, deep underground and sealed away. The source of grace and the source of order. A meteorite embedded in the ground. A star that fell from the sky. Radagon must have wondered, if this was where the minor Erd Tree came from, what of the Erd Tree itself? In his studies, his son Mikola would gift him the path towards enlightenment. He would gift him a discus of light and the triple rings of light, the incantations of Golden Order fundamentalists. Fundamentalism was scholarship in all but name, a mathematic understanding of the world that needed intelligence to be understood. But regardless of all you know, you still need faith to think it to be true. Thanks to the gifts from his son, Radagon would learn the truth. The fundamentalists describe the Golden Order through the powers of regression and causality. Causality is the pull between meanings, that which links all things in a chain of relation. Regression is the pull of meaning, that all things yearn eternally to converge. And with it, he would reveal mimicry in all its forms. He scoured the history of the world, all written records the capital held, and sent explorers far and wide to search the ancient dynasty, to search the eternal cities, to search the divine towers. With causality, all things were linked in a chain of relation. Deep underground, in the eternal city of Noxtella, down past the electrified mimic tiers, past the cold-blooded Nox riding giant ants, and past the throne room holding a legendary talisman, there are two statues, both depicting the hooded Radagon. How could statues of Radagon be here of all places? And with regression, mimicry would be revealed in all its forms. Before Radagon wed Rennala, he cleansed himself in celestial dew, a hidden night tier found in the eternal city. Once upon a time, the stars of the night sky guided fate, and this was a recollection of those times, which was created from starlight shards, an ephemeral sliver that gives off a pale blue glow, what remains of a passing flash of starlight, a prized item that was once used in the eternal city as an ingredient for intoxicating draughts, which were guided by the Black Moon. The moon of Noxtella, the now lost Black Moon, was once the guide of countless stars. The creation of celestial dew was the creation of the primordial drop of dew, from which the Albinaurics were said to have been created. Albinaurics are life forms made from human hands, thus many believe they to live impure lives, untouched by the Erd Tree's grace, their blood thick, prone to coagulation, and silver. Silver like the formless life known as silver tears, found in and around the eternal city. The silver tear makes mockery of life, reborn again and again into imitation. Perhaps one day it will be reborn a lord. Rebirth is as sleep, and with each awakening, memory fades into oblivion. But thanks to the gifts of Mikola, Radagon remembered. He created his own rings of light as a gift of gratitude to his son. Through causality, Radagon saw that all things were linked in a chain of relation. And with regression, he could reveal mimicry in all its forms. He was a mimic tier, the result of an attempt to forge a lord.
O Radagon, leal hound of the Golden Order, thou art yet to become me. Thou art yet to become a god. Let us be shattered, both. Mine other self.
And lord he was. The Golden Order was created by confining destined death. When Marika removed red from primordial gold, Marika was gold. She was their mind, their intelligence, their faith, and their arcane. Radagon was red. He was their vigor, their endurance, their strength, and their dexterity. By seeing every link in the chain in its totality, he learned how all things yearn eternally to converge. Radagon was finally complete. His hood removed. His red hair shone proudly to the world. He would reforge the beam of moonlight bequeathed to him by his first wife, Rennala, to proudly symbolize the tenets of the Golden Order, because without causality, he would not have met the love of his life. Without Rennala, he would have never became complete. He would have never made it here. Marika wished to slay a god, and that was his purpose. She would shatter the Elden Ring, and he would repair it. Together, they would reforge the world. They were of two bodies and two minds, but one single soul. Red and gold would come together again. But for their plan to work, they needed one who could slay a god. So burned and bodiless, they would go out into the world, on the back of a spectral steed. They would find the one who would walk alongside Flame and give them the strength of runes by learning their thoughts, their ambitions, the principles they would follow. They would make them fit to be Lord and burn the Erd Tree to meet the road of destined death and slay the Elden Beast, to stand before the Elden Ring and do it again and again and again. Over the past 2 years, many of us have been trying to figure out what is actually going on in Elden Ring. And this is what I think is going on. But I'm tired of this cycle. I'm tired of playing the same game over and over and over again. The same story over and over and over again. Whether you believe the story I told you was true or not, doesn't matter. We all burn the Erd Tree just the same. I'm done sacrificing Melina, or burning my tarnished flesh in her stead, only just to break her heart. So this is why my tarnish will be traveling through the land of shadow. To end the cycle, because when he washed up in that stranded gravesite, the place where he was sure to die, he was found by a young woman, and she left him with a flask filled with her tears, her pain, and her struggle, so he could press on, to seek the Elden Ring. My tarnished owes it to Melina for being able to press on, so he will search for an answer. He will find a way to save her. That is my goal. That's what I want to do. That's the story I want to be told. But what of Mikola? What is his story? What are his goals? What does he want of our tarnished? Why did Torrent lead Melina to our tarnished? I don't know. His influence can be found everywhere in the lands between. Everything in Elden Ring seems to be tied to him. But I can't figure him out. And because of that, I don't trust him. That's why Mikola is the most important character, and that by understanding his story, we can understand the story of Elden Ring. Thank you for watching, and see you under the shadow of the Erd Tree.